Hey everyone, happy Tuesday, February 17th. Welcome to this Bridge Programs Masterclass. Good to have you with us wherever you're tuning in from. I know we've got folks all across the globe coming in here for a great conversation on this Tuesday afternoon or evening, or I know for some of you it's the middle of the night. So thanks for staying up for this. We'll you won't be disappointed. So it's going to be a great 1 hour session. I'm joined here by a couple of my colleagues here at Management Consulted. First, Ish, who's going to be leading the teaching here today. He's really excited for him, ex-BCG, just a lot of experience and authority in this area. And as well as joined by Katie Neff, who's our Black Belt advisor. You'll hear from her in just a second. But it's if you're an APD, like it's honestly it's a pretty great time to be looking to get into consulting. If you would have come to us 15 years ago, there was far fewer ways for you to make this transition. And so I just want to say that to give you hope, and that you're not in the wrong place. You're in the right place, and we'll do our best to kind of guide you, like to put your best foot forward and to help you on this journey to breaking into consulting and transforming your career. So glad to have you with us once more. Uh, I'm going to quickly ask Katie to tell you a little bit about how, if you're interested, after this call, you're like, okay, I could maybe use some help to kind of tailor my resume to these bridge programs, to these firms, or just with case prep, building business acumen, things like that. Got a couple of ways for you to engage with us. And so, Katie, I'll give you the floor.
Thanks, Japheth. Hey, everybody. I think we have some really great BCG energy here. I'm also ex-BCG and also a Black Belt alum user. My role with MC is to advise people, candidates like yourself, interested in pursuing consulting on how we can best help you, and also to help those that join Black Belt navigate all of the resources and work with our fantastic coaches. What do we have? If you just need to get that resume out the door, because we do have deadlines coming up, our document edits, we offer you consultified resumes and cover letters. These are done by ex-consultants. That is our editing team. They are humans. Black Belt, our starting package is 8 coaching sessions with one of our world-class coaches, like Ish, who went through the process as an APD candidate. And you get that includes a resume and cover letter edit. And you also get a personalized plan to help you focus on your attention where you need to focus. If you need some consulting experience on your resume, as this is becoming more competitive, I highly recommend our strategy sprint. This is a 1 week consulting project for a real client. The client is Shred Electric. I think I said that wrong, Japheth, but you can correct me on the name. But they are working with solar panels to come up with novel ways to use them in fishing and transportation and such. Anyway, all of this is to say we can help you from start to finish in your recruitment process. And if you're not sure what would work for you, you can also book a session with me. All at the QR code and in the chat are links. If you're a student partner, you have discounts in your account already. That's all from me. I'll stick around in the chat if you have any questions for about 5 minutes. But let's get to the real meat of this event. Back to Japheth so we can hear from Ish.
Sweet. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Katie. And like she mentioned, like you're not quite sure which of these programs is for you. If any, book that 15-minute call with her. It'll be a great 15 minutes, where she'll be able to kind of guide you to what makes the most sense for your next step. Wonderful. Okay. Well, I think we've got quorum here. We've got the majority of folks here that are tuning in, and so I'm gonna quickly ask Mr. Ish to introduce himself. I'm really excited to that you'll get to hear from Ish today. So Ish, I'm going to turn it over to you to kind of kick us off, introduce little bit of your journey, and then get into the teaching.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Japheth, for that introduction. Great to see a fantastic group of folks here. hopefully you can take a lot away from this course today. I'll be talking a lot about advanced degree recruitment, but before I get into it, just wanted to talk a bit about my background here. So I'm an APD myself. I did my PhD in neuroscience from the University of Michigan, Go Blue. And during my time in academia, I went through the process of recruitment for consulting. And it was a arduous journey. It does take a lot of effort to kind of navigate the process. But MC was there, so I kind of went through the ringer with management consulted, and that's how I landed an offer at BCG. During my time at BCG, I did a lot of work in life sciences, healthcare, public sector, social impact, and I was also very much involved in recruiting. So I got sent to various business schools to do kind of like workshops and networking events. I also had the pleasure of leading Bridge to BCG in the Chicago office in 2024. And as part of that process, I learned a ton in terms of what BCG is looking for in aspiring consultants, and hopefully I can share some of that knowledge with you all today. So that's a bit about myself. Just going into the agenda, what are we going to cover today? So first, we'll talk a bit about like who are these programs for. You're hearing the word bridge, but it might be a bit mysterious to you as to like what is this thing. And then what is the application timeline? Many of you in the call might already know that now is the time. And we'll walk through kind of the application process, what you need to do in order to set yourself up in the best foot so that you can ace the interview process and get an offer. We'll be talking a bit about networking tips, some resume and some interview tips as well. So one thing that advanced degree candidates don't have, unlike MBAs, is access and that kind of notable business experience, right? So, and it's kind of a cycle. You don't have access to a lot of programs that a lot of business students at elite MBA programs have. So just for your knowledge, the typical business school student at a top business school has a lot of things like available to them: direct coaching, direct networking, and even companies coming directly to the universities themselves. A lot of advanced degree candidates just don't have that. So, and on top of that, you're busy, let's say in your lab environment, you're busy with your coursework, you are in a very rigorous program, so you might not have the time to like learn about business. You don't have the time to take some time off to do an internship, and you might not have formal opportunities to take business classes, right? So that's kind of like the context. But I would say that despite that, there's a big recruitment pipeline for advanced degree candidates. It's growing year over year, and advanced degree candidates are highly desired. So that's kind of the point I wanted to make for you. So bridge programs are essentially short programs for those who are APDs or ADCs. There are different terms that you'll see different companies use. McKinsey uses the term advanced professional degree. BCG uses the term advanced degree candidate. But who falls under this? Who is eligible? So basically, if you are a current PhD, JD, MD, PharmD, any kind of advanced degree program that is non-MBA based, and you're currently enrolled, or you have very recently graduated. Another kind of category that falls under this is if you're a medical resident or a postdoctoral fellow. You still count as an APD or an ADC. One quick thing to note that consulting companies usually recruit a year out. So if you're applying for bridge programs this year, this will like your start date might be sometime in 2027. So just keep that in mind. If you're looking for something that is more immediate, that would be more so from an experienced hire out. And here at Management Consultant, we work with a ton of experienced hires as well. So feel free to reach out to us to talk about that. I won't go into details of specifics around eligibility, but what you'll see is a QR code on the right-hand side. We have an excellent article focusing on all the nitty-gritty by company on the eligibility requirements and who can be categorized as an APD or an ADC. All right, so let me tell you a bit about these bridge programs and why are they set up in the manner that they are, right? So they are short programs that last anywhere from a few days to up to a week. And they're meant to be an introduction to consulting, the company, and it's also a way for companies to evaluate you in a very kind of accelerated, quick timeline. This was set up a number of years ago by consulting companies to offer an alternative path to an internship. So the typical MBA or the undergrad might spend a summer doing a full 10 to 12-week internship, which is not possible, let's say, if you are in a busy like medical school program, or if you are in a PhD program and you are really tied to your lab. So it's not possible. So it's offered as an alternative to that. Why they matter? They're not practice applications. So this is something that a lot of people have as a misconception. They're actually highly competitive. We have here at Management Consultant have great insider information into like specific firms and how competitive they are. So certainly if you want to continue with us in terms of signing up for a black belt or any of our programs, you can learn more about that through us. It is the strongest pipeline and often the main pipeline for companies to get into consulting. And oftentimes what you'll see is either, depending on the company and the format, it will offer a guaranteed interview, or in some cases, you'll see that the performance during that program might lead to an offer. All right, the way that it works, kind of wanted to highlight that aspect here on the right-hand side. So let's say you might do some diligence around the specific firm. Does it do the type of work that you're interested in? Let's say if you're a PhD, you might be very much interested in life sciences. If you're a PhD background in biology, let's say, you might also look at the firm's values, right? Does it align more so with what you're thinking of? And then on top of that, there is the firm evaluation of you. So during this process, you get to do a case simulation or a mini project. It can be either individually or in team environments. And the firm is also evaluating cultural fit. So during the program itself, there's a lot of opportunities to network, and you're interfacing a lot with current folks all the way from the consultant level up the way to managing director and partner. So it's a great way for the firm to evaluate you as well. So it's very much bi-directional, right? So at these programs, you learn about the firms and the culture of these firms, and they evaluate you as well. And then from this, what happens typically is you go back home from these programs, and they provide a great source of networking. You can follow up with these individuals, and oftentimes you'll see next steps in terms of interview invites. One thing to keep in mind is that a few years ago, these programs were mostly virtual, but now they have fully transitioned to be in person. But the nice thing is that they offer a free trip to you, all expenses paid, and it's really attractive opportunity for many, right? So you don't have to worry about spending your own money to go out to participate in these programs. So a bit about like what do these bridge programs look like and like why they are powerful, right? So I kind of made some of these points in the previous slide, but just to highlight them again, they are these kind of 2 days to like 5 days, a week long immersive experience. So you are either in a like a simulated environment or you are staffed on a live case. So for example, the Bain ADvantage program, which is for advanced degree candidates, is around a week long, and you're staffed on a real project. Sometimes what will happen is some companies might do programs where they talk about past project experiences or simulated project experiences just to bring that experience to you, so that you can learn and critically think and apply those skills into problem solving, right? A few examples you'll see here. Like, again, these are some highlights. This is not comprehensive by any mean. We have a slide that I'll show you in a few moments here that talks about some of the upcoming programs, but McKinsey, BCG, Bain, the MBBs, the top companies all offer these programs. And then we have some firms like ClearView and L.E.K. These are more so life sciences heavy firms. And so those are very much tailored towards life sciences. And as I mentioned, the kind of things that you get are not only exposure, but also building connections. And it's a major leg up to kind of full-time opportunity. So when I led the Bridge to BCG program, I'll just share an anecdote here. There are a ton of qualified candidates that were part of the program. And it was really an opportunity for them to kind of like ask not only me, but everyone else that was part of the program questions around what is life at BCG like, or what is like a project experience that we can share with them, or how can an advanced degree candidate thrive without business experience? What kind of training do you get, right? So a ton of people were coming up to me and others asking all of these questions. So it's certainly one of those ways to disseminate a lot of company information live. And these candidates benefited quite a bit. They learned about what life at BCG is like, and got to benefit from the whole networking process. And this is kind of what I was mentioning a slide earlier around the content in Bridge to BCG. So this is a bit more formalized in terms of the sessions that typically happen. And I've put here some of the sessions that have happened in the year that I led it. So in Bridge to BCG specifically, again, this does not necessarily apply to other companies. You might get similar or different experiences depending on the firm. But in a typical Bridge to BCG program, you might get a kind of a case team simulation. So you're given a case and you work on it together in a kind of a small group environment with other Bridge participants, and you get a consultant or a project leader from BCG who is acting as the lead on that case and is giving you feedback, is assessing how you do on that kind of case. And it's really fun. It's honestly like a really fun exercise because you're given a number of like data points and slides already to work with. So you're not doing a ton of work, but you're still able to showcase kind of your critical thinking skills through this process. There were also a number of info sessions. So ton around what the BCG culture is like, what is life like as a consultant. So a ton of these info sessions, just so that people who are attending are very comfortable and familiar with the company and know what the company stands for and the type of work that they do. And then there are interview prep sessions that happen as well. So they're kind of mini group sessions that give tips on how to perform on math, how to do frameworks. So the canonical casing skills, if you will. So I led a number of these workshops, and these were also really fun and engaging with the candidates because they get to do little problems. They get to hear about how BCG gets to think about it, and they get some real advice on how to perform well on these specific sections of the case. And then there were also consultant panels. So you get to talk to other APT consultants in like a panel setting, and you get to ask any questions. And the great thing about this is there are no recruiters present, so you can ask anything without any consequences. So this is like, I thought this was really a fantastic way for candidates to ask a ton of really insider questions. And then, of course, there's a ton of happy hour and networking sessions, dinners, things like that. You get to meet people like across all seniority levels of the company from that specific office. And it's really, again, a great way to network. So all that said, what I just showed you is BCG as an example. Kind of wanted to highlight this as a core slide. Please do take note of this if you are interested in applying to these programs. We also have this information on our website, and this is constantly updated as new firms come up with their programs for the year. So we have Bain coming up, BCG, ClearView, L.E.K, Lumanity, McKinsey, Oliver Wyman, and Trinity. McKinsey, BCG, Bain are the generalist firms. The remainder of them are more so hiring in their life sciences / healthcare practice. I would recommend checking out the article on our website and going through each of the descriptions on the application page to make sure that you fit the bill and you are really interested in these programs. All right, so let's talk a bit about like specific tactics. And then, of course, please feel free to type in your questions in the chat so that we can answer them towards the end. So what you need for a successful application. And I just want to preface this with, this is the bread and butter of what we do at Management Consulted. I, as a coach, work with tons of candidates working on these specific aspects to make sure that from screening all the way to getting that offer, you are well prepared and make sure that you benefit through the process. So kind of across these firms, you need a resume. A one-page business style resume is really crucial. And then along with that, you may have a cover letter. The format of this is changing as we get into more of a digital / AI environment. Some companies are now requiring video cover letters. Some don't require cover letters at all. You'll see test scores being asked across firms as well. So test scores can be a combination of GPA, it can be any kind of GRE, GMAT scores. If you don't have those scores, GRE, GMAT scores, or any of other kind of testing, maybe your school was very much optional, that's completely fine to not include them. And then there is this kind of new avenue of digital assessments. These have become really popular in the past couple of years. They're usually problem-solving style games or other kind of complex or I would say mild to moderate level of complexity in like problem solving or puzzles or things like that. Usually what these are assessing is, of course, your ability to think logically, but also some of them assess personality types, your risk-taking behavior, things like that. They're becoming more and more prevalent across firms. So you'll see that as a bit as a emerging kind of aspect of these applications. All right, so let's kind of talk a bit about like how can you, quote unquote, consultify your resume? So a lot of you advanced degree candidates, APDs, let's say you're in a PhD program, you might be familiar with a CV, an academic CV, which is like pages and pages long. That's not something that consulting firms are looking for. You need something that is concise, one page, business style, and it really needs to highlight your transferable skills, right? So let's say you have done research on this amazing genomics topic and you've published kind of like 5 publications from it. Your research was highly cited. You need to talk about how do those skills, whether it's analytical, critical thinking, whatever it might be, even leadership, if you led that project, if you led collaborations or whatever dimension that might be, that you're highlighting that in a transferable manner in your resume. So that's really crucial. And then on top of that, we really encourage leadership roles. Leadership does not necessarily mean that you need to be the president of a club or like active in student government. That's not what we mean. You can take leadership in your lab. You can take leadership in your program, in your coursework. So showing initiative and leadership is very much encouraged. And then if you do have any kind of commercial experience, whether it be taking a business class, whether it be taking any kind of like doing an internship, or just taking a Coursera course, for example, definitely highlight those just so that you can talk a bit about your interest in business. And then as we highlighted earlier, academic awards, definitely highlight them, how competitive they were. If you scored an award that maybe 500 people applied to and you got it, that's a really amazing achievement. So you should highlight that metric in your resume. And then, of course, top scores, if you scored Dean's Honors or something similar throughout each semester, definitely highlight that as well. Another big thing that we highlight here at Management Consulted is networking. Networking is really crucial. There's a ton of candidates that are applying. The pool is really large. And oftentimes it matters who you know, who you talk to, what kind of relationships you build, what kind of referrals you might get. So definitely network. And I would say start off by building your contact list. So use LinkedIn. LinkedIn is your friend here. Find relevant contacts based on, let's say, if you went to the same school or the same program, maybe you have a mutual connection. Use that as a source to build your contact list. Then build efficient connections, right? So that's going to be really crucial in this process. And as you're having these networking calls, make sure that you are like respectful of their time. Make sure that you are punchy. You keep it short, and you spend some time demonstrating your interest in the firm and talking a bit about yourself, but largely spend time talking about or asking questions about the firm, the type of work that they're doing. So make sure you go prepared with your key points ahead of the networking session. And then make sure that you avoid negative sentiments. I work with a ton of advanced degree candidates, and this is one thing I consistently coach folks for is a lot of psychological stuff, such as talking about yourself or putting yourself down, talking in a negative manner. So avoid those kind of negative sentiments and make sure that you are memorable in a positive way. All right. I talked a bit about digital assessments earlier. I'll talk a bit about that here as well. as I mentioned, they are increasing in kind of reach and scope. Digital assessments does not equate to AI. I know sometimes they can be synonymous, although some firms are using AI quite a bit for in their digital assessments. So just keep that in mind. Um, what these tests are testing, as I mentioned, structured thinking, quantitative reasoning, decision making under pressure. I would add to this kind of the personality types and risk taking behavior, things like that. Um, and of course, how to prep for them as you're doing case practice. For case interviews, you'll get a lot of that kind of skills applicable to the digital assessment. So kind of practicing under time pressure. Whenever you get 60 to 90 seconds to create a framework, that kind of like prep under pressure is going to help you with the digital assessment. It's also going to help you with kind of the process, right? So thinking about a problem, and structuring the problem, things like that, logical thinking, critical thinking, all of those skills are going to apply to the digital assessment. And here at Management Consultant, we have a number of practice tests that you can certainly take, that you should have access to once you join kind of our programs, and that should help you get a lot of traction in practicing for these digital assessments. All right, so just to kind of like summarize this here, and then I'll pass it off to Japheth afterwards. So few things around case. You'll get kind of this QR code here. You'll get kind of your full case prep plans. This is a huge topic that kind of the next few minutes here won't do justice necessarily. But just to highlight a bit around like the key format for a few firms here. So for Bain, you might have 2 case interviews. For BCG, there is a big online case aspect now. That's a chatbot case. So that's a clear kind of digital assessment that has now become part of the case interview process as well. And then you'll see a number of other formats here for ClearView, L.E.K, McKinsey. And on our website, we have a ton more detail around other firms and the type of formats that they have. But few tips here around how to become a master in cases. This is some of my tips that I highly recommend. Definitely do drills on your gap areas. So do a diagnostic first with an expert. Once you get that diagnostic done, figure out what your gaps and challenges are, and do drills, right? I also strongly believe in learning by reading and watching and listening. So we have a ton of resources around video interviews, where you'll see kind of a interviewer giving a case to an interviewee, and you can learn a ton just by observation and solving alongside. There's also a ton of different case types. As you're beginning this process, we recommend doing 10 cases, 2 of them across the various case types like profitability, market entry, etc. And then also market sizing. That's a kind of a great starter you'll see in a lot of cases, and it can really help you get traction very quickly. So highly recommend market sizing here. So with that, I will stop sharing my screen and pass it back to Japheth.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Ish. Those a lot of insights and tactics packed into 35 minutes. So thank you for that. We're not done yet, and so I'm excited to transition to just answering some questions for the rest of our call. So we received a bunch that y'all submitted before the call, so thank you for those. We'll start there, but then we'll go to the chat here. I've been kind of taking notes, taking questions as we've gone along, and so we'll like refer to those and and answer as many of those as we can. I'll just pop this slide up here for another 30 seconds or so you can scan that QR code here if you'd like to kind of take the next step with resume and cover letter edits, black belt, et cetera. Um, Ish, you ready to answer some questions?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Wonderful. Okay, let's go to the next slide. Awesome. Well, let's just rock and roll here, starting with kind of like questions related to like profile background. If you're not accepted into one of these bridge programs, is it still worth it to submit an application down the road as an experienced hire? Ish, I've got thoughts, but I'll let you share your
Yeah.
perspective first if you'd like to.
So the nice thing about these bridge programs is if you don't get in, you can still apply later that year through the regular application round. So just to talk a bit about timeline, right now is when these bridge programs are going on. You'll see these application deadlines in February through March and maybe some in April as well. If you don't make it through any of these programs, you can still apply during the summer, which is their regular recruitment route. And yes, that should not be a problem. In fact, a lot of these companies do encourage you to apply again just a few months later. You don't need to apply or you might not be eligible as an experienced hire, especially if you're in school. So just keep that in mind. You might decide to apply a few years down the road. By that time, you might become an experienced hire, but I would say if you don't get into the bridge program, generally you can reapply the same year.
That's great. I'm really what I'm hearing you say is like there's no downside to applying for these if you're eligible, right?
Yeah,
If you don't make it, now you're in the firm's kind of pool of applicants and can right keep up those connections that you made through networking, et cetera.
absolutely.
What are the main things recruiters look for in applicants applying for these bridge programs? And I guess secondary question, how much are you expected to know about um, consulting?
Yeah, so and I can give some insider perspective, having been at BCG. So recruiters are really looking for the core like skills from your academic or advanced degree experience that are transferable to consulting, right? So core things like analytical ability, critical thinking, leadership, entrepreneurial drive, right? Teamwork, lead. I mentioned leadership already, but these are kind of the key things that recruiters are looking for. So it really depends on how you frame them in your resume and cover letter. This is why, kind of going a few slides back here, I was talking about the importance of highlighting those transferable skills in your resume and cover letter, right? So, and I can't highlight that enough. That is super crucial for you to do. So having a strong resume and cover letter and communicating these things well is going to impress the recruiter if they are able to find these specific things in your documents. How much you're expected to know about consulting? Well, there's one thing about like knowledge about consulting, knowledge about the firms, knowledge about like what a consultant does. That kind of basic information is available online, and a ton of articles on our website. So you should be able to know that. But if you're asking how much are you expected to be part of a consulting club or kind of a consulting organization within your university, encouraged but not required. So I've interviewed personally tons of APD and ADC candidates who um, did not have consulting club experience, but were able to communicate their skills from from their academic or research or any other experience very well, right? So that's kind of my answer to that question.
It's all about translation, isn't it? How you can translate what you've done in academia or law or medicine and translate that for a consulting context.
Absolutely.
Similar vein, the next question here is about just like domain expertise. So, right, if somebody's in like life sciences, like how much does that come into play when firms are evaluating candidates?
Yep. So for MBB firms, McKinsey, BCG, Bain, domain expertise does not matter. I've personally worked with folks at BCG who had a PhD in English or humanities, and that's totally fine, right? And so the MBB firms are completely domain expertise agnostic. What you do your PhD in, what you do your advanced degree in does not necessarily matter. And that might be sad for some of you to hear because you've put in so much effort into your research and work, but truly what they're looking for is translation, right? How does that kind of domain expertise translate into general things within the firm? Now, for life sciences firms, that's a bit different. So firms, I'll take ClearView as an example. Um, if you do some small research, you can find out that ClearView is mostly staffed by advanced degree candidates, mostly PhDs, MDs, and they're specifically looking for life sciences expertise, domain expertise in biology or related fields, right? So if you have that kind of a domain knowledge, that will be fantastic for these life sciences firms, particularly for ClearView.
Love that. That's super helpful, Ish. I think we kind of answered this question about how do the firms assess demonstrated interest in consulting. You've mentioned like being part of a consulting club or some sort of consulting organization. Is there anything else that you would add to what you shared previously?
Yeah, so I think try to do like other things if you don't have the time or effort to do a consulting club. At the beginning of this call, Katie mentioned the strategy sprint. That is a fantastic way of getting real life consulting experience in a quick manner, and you can certainly put that on your resume. And you're working with a real client, you're doing a consulting project, you're getting a ton out of it, you're getting a certification, and it's really valuable in these firms. If you can't do like a consulting club or any other business course, or maybe your university just doesn't offer those kind of things, or maybe they're not accessible to advanced degree candidates, there's other options out there to demonstrate your interest.
Right. Source your own internship, go to a consulting project for the small family business down the street from you, et cetera. Lots of ways. And we're always happy to share ideas and kind of help folks along those pathways. Moving into kind of the next section, here's one I was excited to see because the question was, should I be discouraged if I have a PhD and not an MBA? And I think like absolutely not. Like you should own your experience, be excited about where you're at, and just roll with kind of what you've got with what you have. Like you can't change the fact that you have a PhD, and you might not want to go spend a year or two to get an MBA. So like own your experience and kind of work with what you've got. So there's
And
my
just to add to
soapbox.
that, yeah, and just to add to that, once you are in the firm, you're seen no differently than an MBA consultant, right? So you enter at the same level as an MBA consultant, not at a different level. And once you're on the project and you're working on your case, you're not seen any differently than an MBA consultant, right? So just keep that in mind that you are like you have value. It's not the same skills as an MBA, but you have a separate set of transferable skills that these firms are highly like looking for, and you should, as Jeff just said, you should own up to it, and you should like demonstrate those kind of transferable skills.
Love that. Yeah, once you're in, there's a lot of parity. And if you look at our like annual salary report for consulting, MBA and PhDs get paid the same in a lot of firms, and so that's pretty awesome as well. All right, moving on here. Do participants have to pay for their own lodging and accommodations? Nope, all expenses paid. Will you get paid? Not that we know of. Ish, do you have any
Yeah,
additional insight there?
so I know Bain ADvantage does pay. I don't know the specific amount, but it's a few grand that you do get paid because it is a real internship. But some of the other programs like McKinsey Insight or Bain, like Bridge to BCG, do not pay. But every program should be paying you for your flight or transportation, and for your hotel accommodations, your meals, everything should be taken care of. That one, every program should offer at bare minimum.
Wonderful. Last question here of the pre-submitted ones. How does networking help with these applications issue? Like you address this, but is there anything additionally you'd like to add on the networking piece specifically?
No, I think networking is crucial. It's, again, as I mentioned, it's a crowded field. You want to make sure that you show demonstrated interest in the specific office. You make connections there, and even if it's not a quote unquote referral, you might still get a quick note from a consultant to the recruiter or something. So referral is, of course, a good goal to have. And there was a question here in the chat around do these firms offer referrals or not? It depends on the firm, but generally, yes, you can get a referral. Especially if you are from a non-target school, I would highly recommend going after a referral.
Love that. All right, let's address a few more that came in through the chat here. I'm loving these. Everybody, keep them coming. Let me see. Can you share, just continuing on networking, can you share examples of negative networking, like something that somebody might say in a networking call that would might not be recommended?
Yeah, I mean, I've personally experienced this. So I've networked as a consultant at BCG. I networked with a ton of like aspiring consultants, ADCs, APTs in particular. But some things that left a bad impression was like kind of being very, very pushy, I would say, or like trying to get a lot out of me in that kind of a short conversation. So I would just say, like, read the room, try to be kind of a social normal person, and try to see what the vibe of that person is that you're talking to, and just have a normal conversation. Other kind of negative things that I've directly experienced is talking about other firms on the call. Definitely don't do that. Don't talk about competitor firms or anything like that. Don't talk about other kind of careers. At that moment, your focus should be consulting, and you should talk about consulting right there and then. Don't talk about like, oh, should I apply to this office because it seems quote unquote less competitive? Like, just don't. You can think about those things. You can talk to your friends about it. You can talk to us about it, but I wouldn't necessarily talk to, as you're networking, directly with a consultant about those things.
I think that's really helpful. Don't say everything you're thinking. But thanks for that. I think there's some myths in there that are just helpful to bust here with the group today. Next question. Are there any scholarships for black belt? I'm happy to take this. So we offer discounts to students at our partner programs. So if you are there, then just check your account. If you're kind of not sure, just shoot us an email and we'll get you an answer on that. So just email team@managementconsultant.com. Can we get referrals? Already talked about that. There's a good one here in the chat. Would you mind elaborating more on how applicants are reviewed from non-target versus target schools?
Yeah, so let me first explain the difference between target and non-target. So there's a pipeline of kind of how else can I put it? Like elite universities or like top research universities, public or private, that the firms typically have a pipeline from, and the firms do a lot of like proactive events with these firms, or they might disseminate kind of marketing or other kind of messages to these schools. And those are target schools, right? And then there's non-target schools. Those are basically, I would say, those that are not on those lists, but tier two schools. But being a tier two school doesn't necessarily mean that you're a tier two candidate, right? You might be an excellent candidate at these institutions. You might be high performer, right? So so once you apply as a non-target candidate, there might be a chance that without a referral or without any kind of networking, your application gets kind of like auto rejected, desk rejected based on screening processes just because of the sheer volume of candidates that are applying. So that's kind of why we really recommend, if you're from a non-target school, really establish connections, make sure to network well, make sure to get a referral if possible, just so that you can guarantee an interview and so that you are not upset if you get kind of a rejection afterwards, right? So that's my 2 cents on target versus non-target.
Great. That's a helpful way to frame it. All right. Resumes. How strict is the one-page limit for resumes? Ish, I'm curious to hear your perspective on this, having been on the other side of the table at BCG.
Yeah, so resumes need to be one page, in my opinion. Like, they just need to be one page. You might see some firms making an exception, like I don't know if McKinsey still does it, but a few years ago McKinsey allowed up to 2 pages for an advanced degree candidate. I would still say make one resume, because most firms require a one page resume. And think about it this way, right? You might be seeing this as a burden, like, oh, I have to do a one-page resume, but this is an opportunity for you to communicate concisely, communicate in a succinct manner your transferable skills. So it is what you have to do in the consulting job on a daily basis, as you're creating slides, as you're creating like presentations for C-suite executives and others, being very concise, succinct, and to the point. So they're actually using the fact that you have to create a one-page resume to see, do you have the consulting skills or not? So that's kind of like my take on it, is that it's not just like one page for the sake of being one page. It's actually seeing how you are able to communicate your skills succinctly.
That's a good point. Like that ability to communicate clearly and concisely in one page is something that speaks volumes. So if you can demonstrate that you can do that with limited space, share how brilliant you are, how great your skills are, like your ability to drive impact. If you do that on one page, then it's easier to see that there might be a fit between you and the firm. Um, Great. Question
There's
earlier. Ish,
No,
go ahead.
I was just gonna say there's a good question here. So are there specific geographic regions where PhD holders with a life sciences background are in higher demand? So for life sciences consulting firms, I can say there are specific hubs that they're located in. So just keep those in mind, just to name a few: New York, Boston, the Research Triangle in North Carolina, San Francisco Bay Area, L.A. Those are and sometimes in Chicago. So you'll see these being the core life sciences hubs. So life sciences companies are strategically located here. If you're applying to a generalist firm, like an MBB firm, you can apply anywhere they have an office. It doesn't matter.
That's great insight. If we took the GRE a while ago, like 5 or more years ago, should we still share the scores in our application?
Um, I don't think it's necessary, but if they are impressive, you can still submit them.
That's exactly what I was going to say. If they're good, then yes. If not, then maybe leave them off. Cool. We'll do 2 more questions. So here's a question from the chat. In the case of not being accepted into the bridge program and then consequently applying as an experienced hire, are there differences in the level of industry knowledge expected in the case interviews? Ish, do you want to take a stab at that? I'm happy to share my
Yeah, so I think
perspective.
I think kind of like industry experience, basic industry experience is going to be expected of case interviews in general. Nothing too complicated. We offer a ton of like case like industry primers on various industries. So basics is expected. Beyond that, not necessarily. So it's going to be the same level as what an MBA gets for the case. It's not going to be any different.
Agreed. All right, we'll make this the last question here. So, since all the people applying to these bridge programs have an advanced degree, where do we stand out in the application process, considering that like domain expertise is not like why you're being hired?
Yeah. So what's the really the value of an APD? Like, why are you being hired, right, in the first place? So you have a ton of transferable skills, right? So you have analytical and critical thinking skills. You do a lot of that in your research, in your lab, whichever settings you might be. If you're in med school, you do a ton of that, right? Um, on top of that, you have a lot of grit and perseverance, right? So again, if you're in a lab environment, you persist to get the answer. And you do this over a 5-year PhD period, right? So you're really determined. And that's kind of the determined entrepreneurial drive that these companies are looking for. Um, on top of that, there is a lot of leadership that you demonstrate. You take leadership over your projects. You take leadership over whatever you're doing in your coursework, um, in your research. Maybe you are mentoring undergrads. Maybe you are working with tons of people. You're training them. You're teaching classes. Um, those are all leadership experiences, right? And then you have kind of like just a general like what should I say? The ability to break down problems. So that's really unmatched. You might not realize all of these things on a day-to-day basis as you're working in your advanced degree program, but you do have these skills, and consulting companies are looking for them. You can literally search online for statements by partners at top companies. For example, at management consultant, we have interviewed Keith Bevins, who is a top partner, senior partner at Bain and Company. And in a podcast, he has explicitly mentioned that the goal for Bain is to increase the advanced degree candidate population. So companies are making it clear you have the skills. So I think you're appropriate for this. So I wouldn't worry too much about. I wouldn't let imposter syndrome creep in. You're fit for it. There's a pathway for you to apply. You should apply.
You should apply. I think that's a great way to land the plane ish. And so, right, folks, like you've got what it takes. Own your story, lean into it. Um, go get them. Like firms want you, and like we want you to believe that as well, right? So believe in yourself, and if you need someone to come alongside you to help you believe that, right, engage with us, reach out. If there's any questions we were not able to answer, I know there's a few in the chat that were great that we just don't have the time for. Just reach out, team at managementconsultant.com, and we'll answer those. Really, really appreciate you. I'm gonna, for the last time, pop this slide up here so that you can learn more. We'll send out the recording of this later this week so you can review it, replay it. Thank you so much for following along, and uh, round of applause for Ish for the amazing insights from a great like career journey, right? From APD to BCG and now to case coach here at Management Consulted. Hope to see everybody in a future call soon. Please stay in touch.
Bye, everyone.